The Journey of Tea Through the Ages. Introduction. The beginning of an ancient tradition, tea, now a beverage enjoyed by billions, had a humble and mystical beginning. Legend has it that tea was discovered in 2737 BCE by Emperor Shen of China. As the tale goes, while the emperor was boiling water in his garden, a gust of wind blew some tea leaves from a nearby tree into the pot. Curious, he tasted the infusion and, delighted, declared it to be a drink of great benefits. This serendipitous event marked the birth of a beverage that would travel across centuries and continents, shaping the cultures and economies of nations. This narrative is proudly brought to you by Polly Speaks For You. At Polly Speaks For You, we are committed to empowering individuals, especially those with disabilities or learning challenges, through innovative text-to-speech and voice recognition technology. Polly Speaks For You is more than just software. It's a tool for self-expression, connecting people with the world in meaningful ways. By blending the richness of history with cutting-edge technology, Polly Speaks For You demonstrates that every voice, whether preserving the past or shaping the future, has the potential to inspire. While we strive to make the story engaging, our primary focus is on storytelling itself. The visuals are secondary. We're showcasing the remarkable capabilities of text-to-speech software that bring these stories to life. The Silk Road and the spread of tea in Asia for centuries. Tea remained confined to the borders of China. It was during the Tang Dynasty, 618 to 907 AD, that tea drinking became more widespread, especially as Buddhist monks adopted the practice to aid their meditation. The early pilgrims who traveled through the mountains of China spread the tea culture across Asia, bringing tea to Japan, Korea, and eventually to Southeast Asia. By the time of the Song Dynasty, 960 to 1279, tea had evolved into a highly prized commodity, revered not only for its health benefits but also for its role in social and cultural rituals. Tea reaches the West. The Portuguese and Dutch traders in the early 16th century, European traders ventured east in search of spices and exotic goods. The Portuguese, under the direction of their naval explorer Vasco da Gama, made the first significant efforts to bring tea to the West. In 1560, Portuguese missionaries and traders began importing tea from China into Europe, particularly Portugal and Spain, though it was still relatively unknown in much of the continent. The Dutch followed suit, bringing tea to the Netherlands around 1600. By the 1630s, the Dutch East India Company had established a profitable tea trade, importing the leaves into Europe via Amsterdam. For many years, tea was a luxury that only the elite could afford. At this point, tea had already earned a reputation in Europe as a healing remedy and exotic delight. England. The tea revolution, though the Dutch were the first to make tea available to a broader European audience, it was England that would eventually fall head over heels for the beverage. In 1657, the first recorded sale of tea occurred in London, marking the beginning of the beverage's rise to prominence. The English elite were immediately enchanted by this mysterious and exotic drink, and it was soon imported in large quantities by the East India Company. Tea was marketed as a medicinal drink that could aid in digestion and alleviate symptoms of various ailments, such as headaches. One of the most significant turning points in the tea saga occurred in 1662 when King Charles II married the Portuguese princess Catherine of Braganza. She was an avid tea drinker, and her royal patronage propelled tea drinking into the aristocratic circles of England. The Queen's affection for tea was so influential that, as a court favorite, it became a status symbol. But it was not just royalty who embraced tea. Soon, it was all the rage in the fashionable coffee houses of London. The first English tea house opened in 1657, and by 1700, tea had become a staple of the English daily routine. Yet, tea's path to becoming a household item was paved with adversity. Initially, the high prices made tea a luxury for the wealthy. The government imposed heavy taxes on tea, and tea smugglers operated in secret, bringing tea into the country to evade the steep tariffs. Some estimates suggest that as much as half of the tea consumed in England was smuggled. The tea prices and the London tea market tea was incredibly expensive in the early 17th century, often costing as much as a small fortune per pound. But by the mid-1700s, tea prices began to drop due to smuggling and the East India Company's monopoly on tea trade, which led to the construction of the London tea market. As more and more people drank tea, demand surged, and the prices of tea steadily decreased, especially when the British government, facing the financial strain of war, began relaxing the tax burden. By the 1800s, tea was a part of daily life for nearly every English citizen. This period saw the establishment of the modern tea trade with major trading houses and tea brokers emerging in London. Tea auctions became regular events, where merchants and traders bid on vast quantities of leaves from distant lands. The East India Company, with its unparalleled control over the tea trade, also played a significant role in shaping the global supply chain. Yet, even as tea became cheaper, it remained symbolic of status. The tea party culture emerged, with elaborate social gatherings held in private homes where tea was served along with cakes and pastries. For centuries, tea had remained a drink for the elites, but by the early 19th century, it was common to see ordinary people sipping their afternoon tea in the parlors of middle-class homes. The Boston Tea Party, a political protest meanwhile, across the Atlantic, the American colonies were becoming more familiar with tea. The British East India Company sought to maintain its monopoly on tea sales by imposing a series of taxes, including the Tea Act of 1773. The American colonists, who were already growing increasingly frustrated with British rule, saw this as another example of exploitation. In December 1773, the infamous Boston Tea Party took place. A group of colonists, dressed as Native Americans, boarded ships in Boston Harbor and dumped 342 chests of tea into the water to protest the Tea Act. This bold act of defiance became a symbol of the colony's resistance to British oppression, and in many ways, it marked the beginning of the American Revolution. The story of the Boston Tea Party remains a powerful reminder of how tea, though originally a luxury item, became intertwined with political and cultural movements. Tea and the rise of globalization. As the 19th century progressed, tea's popularity exploded globally. European colonization in Asia, particularly the British in India and the Dutch in Java, expanded the supply of tea. In the mid-1800s, tea plantations were established in India and Sri Lanka, which allowed for the mass production and export of tea to countries around the world. The cultivation of tea in India, in particular, was a major economic boost, leading to the widespread consumption of tea in the Western world. The British Empire played a significant role in shaping the global tea market, both politically and economically. Tea became not just a drink, but an essential part of life for people from all walks of life, from factory workers in England to high society in Paris and New York. Tea had in many ways become the thread that connected the West to the East. Tea prices through the ages. Over the centuries, the price of tea has fluctuated dramatically. In the early 1600s, tea was extremely expensive. 1 pound of tea could cost more than a month's salary for an average worker. By the late 1700s, as smuggling flourished and the East India Company consolidated its power, tea prices began to fall, allowing the average person to enjoy it. By the Victorian era, tea had become a relatively affordable luxury, and the rise of mass production allowed tea to be consumed at a scale never before seen. Today, tea prices are incredibly varied depending on the quality, origin, and type, but it's accessible to nearly everyone. Tea, once a symbol of wealth and power, is now a drink enjoyed by people of all social classes, from the bustling streets of London to the tea ceremonies in Japanese homes. The reminiscence of those who drank it in the grand halls of palaces, in the bustling streets of London, and on ships crossing the high seas, tea was more than just a beverage. It was a conversation starter, a symbol of social standing, and a drink that fueled moments of reflection. Many a diarist wrote of tea with fondness, from Samuel Pepys' famous diary entries about his admiration for the beverage, to the journal of Lady Mary Wortley Montagu, who wrote about the sophistication of the ritual. Tea had woven itself into the very fabric of life. One English trader in the 18th century wrote, "The taste of tea is more than a mere refreshment. It brings with it a sense of the Orient, a peace that no other drink can provide." This sentiment echoed through the centuries as people from all walks of life discovered the magic of tea. Conclusion: Tea's timeless legacy, the journey of tea, is one of cultural exchange, trade, revolution, and the shaping of nations. From its origins in ancient China to its status as a global commodity today, tea has been a beverage that transcends borders, classes, and generations. It has seen wars, rebellions, and revolutions, yet it continues to bring people together, to provide comfort, and to offer a moment of tranquility in an often chaotic world. As we sip our cups today, we remember not just the history of tea, but the men and women who brought it to us and the millions of people who drank it, each cup telling a story of their own. From the bustling tea markets of London to the quiet moments in homes around the world, tea remains a timeless companion, steeped in history and rich with memories. If you're enjoying this story, please remember to hit like, share, and subscribe. Your support helps us continue creating content that educates and empowers. To learn more about South Africa's leading accessibility software and to support our dyslexic-friendly initiative, visit www.polispeaksforyou.co.za. Drop a comment if you want more information. Thank you for watching this video.